G'day guys, welcome back to Smashy Supercoach podcast. In this episode, I'll be going over my team as it stands. It's been about a month since the last one, or since the last video, even the last video I put out. So in this one, I'll be going over my team as it stands, and then also what's going to be, what the plan is basically moving forward. So anyway. To start off with, I've got Jeremy Marshall King's back in the team. The last update I did, I said that I dropped him out of the team, basically just for the time being, just to see what I could do, what I could do with the extra cash, I suppose. Because I ended up having two chip hookers like the last time. With this one. Currently I've got JMK back in the team. So going into his numbers from the last couple of years, or last couple of seasons, particularly probably the first 13 rounds I looked into it, he actually, I compared him to Harry Grant actually from the first 13 rounds, the last 2 years. And in 2023, after round 13, he was averaging 69.3, and Harry Grant actually had the exact same average at round 13 of 2023. And last year in 2024, Marshall King was averaging 65.7 after round 13, and Harry Grant was averaging 65.9. Pretty close, he's been almost level with Harry Grant after round 13 the last couple of years, but then he's obviously been injured in the back end of the year, and Harry's gone on a bit of a he's gone a bit gangbusters at the back end of the year. So I've ended up getting JMK back in the team. Basically hoping the trend continues this year, that he scores like his average is pretty close, as similar to Harry Grant, in that first half of the year, and he's starting at like 136k roughly cheaper than Harry Grant to start the season. He's at 555k, sorry, and he's only at 4% ownership. So if he can just a bit match Harry Grant and be starting 136k cheaper to start the year, for me that's a bit of a win-win. If that trend continues this year, I see that as a bit of a win-win with only being 4% owned. I think Harry Grant was at this stat, like at this moment when recording, he was like 15% owned. Mo the hooker is Pete Marmazelis, pretty popular, like he's 31% owned, like currently as I'm recording. Only 302k. He's basically going to be the starting 9 for Rabbitohs this year. Hopefully he plays 50 to 60 minutes, and if he scores at around 1 ppm, he should make some pretty good coin, because then that way he'd be like 50 to 60, well maybe 50 at least per game anyway. Front row forwards, Terrell May still there, 597k. He's a 48% owned currently. At the Roosters last year, like probably a lot of people would know not by now, that when he played games 50 plus minutes, he averaged 80 points a game in those. So at the Tigers this year, he's basically going to be playing as many minutes as he can handle. He wants to play big minutes from what he's said in a couple of podcasts that he's been on. He said he basically wants to play until he dies, basically. So um, he'll play whatever minutes Benji wants him to, pretty much. If he wants him to play massive minutes, he'll play massive minutes, and he'll go hard the whole time. So I think if he plays anywhere from 50 to 60 or 60, could play even 65 or more even, depending on what Benji wants to do with him or how he's going in each game. I reckon, I'll predict he'll probably average around, I reckon at least 70. Yeah, it'd be somewhere 70 to 75, in my opinion, and he'll be around the Payne Haas, Neil Blake, Tino even. He'll be around their sort of mark in his average. I predict probably for this season. So he'll be in that top 1, 2, 3, top 3 or 4. Basically, what I'm going to say. The second one, it's a bit of a different one. I did, up until only in the past couple of days, I actually did have Daniel Saifidi as my second front row forward. Only going by, well, not only because he actually plays for my team, but I looked into stats from the last several years when he was at the Knights. Last year he only played like 43 minutes on average, and averaged 43.9. And like look back in the previous seasons when he played games around the 50-minute mark, which is what I'm thinking he's going to end up playing at the Dolphins this year. I'm predicting he'll be playing around the 50-minute mark, which is similar to what Tom Flegler was playing in the first few games before he got injured last year. And when he played, like when Flegler was playing when Flegler was playing those minutes at the start of the year before he got injured, he averaged 69 points in those first 3 games. And then when I was looking at Saifidi, looking back over the past like 3-4 years, when he played roughly around the 50-minute mark, he was averaging close to 60. So I was finding that pretty tempting. And he was only at like 1% ownership too, so he would have been a big pot as well. But instead of him, I've actually got Corey Horsburgh, Big Red, as the second one at the moment. Jewel as well. He's only at like 355k. He's actually very highly owned as well. He's like 42%. He's been looking really fit from what's been getting shown online and on different social medias and that. He's been looking the fittest he's ever been. So yeah, that's probably why he's really popular too. It's because he's been looking really fit. They've got a lot of forwards though, but then again, Josh Papali'i is probably in one of his last years. Possibly, even if he starts, he might not even play many minutes. To start the year, Joe Tarpany usually even only plays maybe 40 to 45 minutes, and then like plays 55 minutes or something like that in the back end of the year. So then that possibly might leave some decent minutes for Corey Horsburgh, even if he plays 40 or 45 minutes every week and goes like crazy like he usually does. He potentially could even he averaged 45 in the games that he played last year, but because he only played 5 games, they gave him a discount to like a 40. Oh no, not 40. He's down to like a 34 or a 35 average or something like that. So he's got a bit of value in him anyway. If he plays around the 45 minutes or something like that, he's got at least 10 points of value in him. And even then, with the way the flex has been brought in this year, how you've got your 17 that you pick and your flex, like you get your best 17 scores out of that. So if he plays low minutes one week, here and there, his score probably drops out anyway. So it's not too bad. After him on the bench, I've still got Royce Hunt at 249k. He's 31% owned at this stage. He's moved to the Tigers as well, just like Terrell May. Only he moved from the Sharks, where he only played about 24 or 25 minutes in average. Basically the same, the point a minute, basically what he averaged there as well. Could make a bit of money as well, hopefully, if he plays around, like, instead of only playing 25 minutes, if you can play up around, even around the 40 mark and score around 1 point, like a point a minute, can make a bit of money there as well. And then my fourth one, I've got Tom Amone at the Bulldogs. They've got him back from the Super League. He did previously play in the NRL, but I can't remember off the top of my head actually who he played for. And then went to the Super League for several years, and then the Bulldogs signed him. He's like 232k, and he's 22% owned at the moment. Kind of a bit of a placeholder, but if he gets a bench spot and at least plays like even 35 minutes, he hopefully can make a bit of money. But if not, I'm not going to probably worry about that too much. Onto the second row forwards. I got Hamole Olakawatu in the team now as my first 2RF. He's 18% owned at the moment. He's 665k. He's going to be probably my top gun in the 2RF to start the year now. I'm actually going pretty much all in on Manly's opening draw as well. I've got probably their 4 best Supercoach players in my team currently, and I'll get to the other guys as I get further through positions. Manly has 5 of their first 7 games, or they've got 4 of their first 5, and then they've got 5 but then all up they've got 5 of their first 7 games at Brookie to start the year. And the only really tough game they got was against Melbourne over that stretch of games as well, and even then they scored pretty well against Melbourne anyway. So I'm going all in on Manly for that, and usually when any of them score well, they pretty much all score well. The players that I've got from Manly anyway. So Olakau'atu is the first one. Still got Isaiah Papali'i in the team. He's at 585k. He's 25% owned at the moment. He's been named in the first trial as well on an edge for the Panthers. Whether he gets a spot, 100%. Ahead of like Scott Sorensen potentially, although there's been rumours getting around of Liam Martin being moved to more of a middle role. But yeah, if Papali'i doesn't end up being on an edge, my other options that I'm kind of looking at is either going to Connor Watson, where he's only a couple of K cheaper than IPAP. Looking at going fully Watson. Seeing as like for that until Brandon Smith comes back into the side for the Roosters, Connor Watson will probably most likely be playing 80 minutes or close to 80 minutes at hooker every week, which means there'll be big base numbers for him. He's a good runner of the footy out of dummy half as well. He'll get them on the front foot pretty well, but then how much go forward they have in their side this year's another question. Like they lost Warrior Hargraves, Terrell Mays that obviously moved on to the Tigers. Whether or not Radley plays on an edge, or he'll probably end up having to play 13. which is like where he's been pretty good at in the past anyway. And then they'll probably have like Crichton and Nat Butcher on the edges at the Roosters. But yeah, that first probably at least half to 2/3 of the year, he'll be playing close to 80 minutes. Watson will be playing close to 80 minutes at 9 for the Roosters. That's one option I think if I'm looking at if Papali'i doesn't get the 80-minute edge spot at the Panthers, or potentially even going down to Zach Hosking if he's fit for the Raiders come round one. He'd give me an extra 70k to use as well, where I could potentially change someone else in my team to someone I'm interested in as well, but I'll get to that bit later. So he's at 585k, he's 25% own IPAP. My next 2RF, I've got Kalma Tuolangi. Been hearing some mail that he's going to be on the right edge at the Eels, outside Mitch Moses, and he'll have Zach Lomax outside him. Hearing that he'll be on the right edge, and then I think the other edge is going to be potentially Bryce Cartwright, and then they're going to have who is it? They're going to have Sean Lane, Ryan Madison on the bench playing as a middle, along with probably like Wiremu Greg or someone like that. And they'll have like Junior Paulo with Joe Offen and Gowie in the front row with Jermaine Hopgood at 13. So they'll probably I see Tuolangi if he's playing on the right edge outside Mitch Moses, he'll be pretty handy out there. Like he's only 433k, and he's only 7% owned as well. So he's a bit of a pod if he gets that role. My next one is one of my Finns boys, Kulikefu Finifuiaki. He's at 368k. Basically, when he was at the Cowboys, he had only a small number of games where he played 80 minutes, but he was averaging like around the 50 odd in those games. But then his overall average for the year, because he was coming off the bench and only playing the small minutes, where he was averaging like 36 or 37 or something like that. And he's at 19% ownership at the moment. And then after him, on my bench in the 2RF, I've got Kobe Hetherington, and like he's only 15% owned, and he's 338k. So that's because of basically the mail getting around that the Broncos are going to move Pat Carrigan from lock into the front row, which would then allow Madge to put Hetherington at lock. So he's got some value there in him if he plays around at least the 50-minute mark or something like that at lock. There's a bit of value there in him. And then my last one, it's out of a couple of Warriors young fellas for the last spot on the bench in 2RF. So it's out of Jacob Laban, who's only 2% owned, he's been named on one of the edges for the Warriors in their trial game this week, where most of their teams their top lineup. So potentially he could end up being on that edge when they eventually name the side in round one, but no one really knows because Jackson Ford is not in the lineup for that trial, and he's the main one that's probably likely to get that spot ahead of him. So if he gets that spot in round one, he'll be there. If not, there's also Dominic Vaimaga as well, who's in the 2RF, who's available at 2RF and Supercoach, but he's 20% owned, and he's very likely to play off the bench as probably as a middle. So yeah, either one of those two will end up probably being that last one in the team in my 2RFs. So yeah, moving on to 5'8", I've got Cody Walker at the moment. Even though in the recent days there's been the mail about him having a calf injury, so he's gonna be touch and go for round one. So he's at 559k and he's 8% owned. So if he's not ruled out for round one, then I'll keep him in there. And he'll be a bit of a pod there because he's only 8% owned. If not, I'm probably going to take a bit of a gamble, maybe on Jerome Luai. Got the Tigers playing halfback, or potentially maybe even I'm considering even going someone like a Braden Trindle. It sounds a bit silly, but yeah, if Walker ends up being ruled out, I'll probably go for either Luai or Trindle, maybe around a similar price. Luai basically because when he played halfback without clearing the team at Penrith, he went pretty well. He actually averaged like 20 points a game, something like that, something ridiculous like that, more than what he actually averaged in total for the season. And with Trindle, that would be mostly because I've been hearing mail of Nico Hines actually playing 6 and Trindle playing 7. So with him being the more dominant half, probably there, maybe Nico won't score as well. So, but I think if Walker does get ruled out, I'll probably go for Luai. And then my other one is Luke Metcalf. He's very highly owned as well. Like he's 33% owned. He's 443k. Interestingly, for the Warriors, with their first trial coming up on the weekend, been named actually at 7, which is very appealing actually, because he'll probably be have his hands on the ball more often than what he probably would if he was playing 6. And he's like come up through the grades when he was at Cronulla. Came up through the grades playing as a 7 mostly, and he wants to play 7, so he's getting the first crack at that in the trials, and yeah, that'll be pretty handy if he's actually playing 7 as well. But he's available at 5'8" in Supercoach, so that'll be handy. And if Tanner Boyd, obviously not being in the team, who's probably the only chance of really taking the goal kicking, or even if Metcalf's at 7 and Tamari Martin is the 6 that's picked to play alongside him, and not someone like a Tanner Boyd or someone like that, he'll goal kick. The only other one would take the kicking off him would be Adam Pompey, but I'd say Metcalf would probably get it anyway. So then, moving on to my halfback. Well, this one's a bit out of the box. I don't have, compared to my last couple of teams that I put out, I actually don't have Cleary in my team anymore, and I've still opted against Nico Hines at this stage. Just because I've actually been able to probably use the money a bit more in other parts of the team, which has made at least one or two other spots on the team a bit stronger. So I've used the extra cash from Cleary that I was using before. So yeah, I've opted against Cleary mostly to be able to use the extra money on other positions. And that's the only one really, because he'll probably end up going pretty well. But hopefully I'm not going to regret that too much at the start of the year with how tough of a the Panthers have. Hopefully Cleary actually doesn't go too well at the beginning. And obviously I've gone against having Nico on the side because mostly of like over a large sample size the last couple of years. He's like last season and in like close to 20 games he only averaged 68 with Trindle on the side, and he averaged like 120 in the handful of games without Trindle. Is where like was it the year before last when Matt Moylan was there, he was averaging around 100 and then only averaging like 60 something with Trindle. So yeah, I've opted against both Cleary and Hines at this stage, and at 3% ownership I've picked DCE, and that's so he's the next one that I've picked, going with that Manly opening draw. Basically when I've looked into DCE, last year in particular, playing at home at Brookie, he averaged like 73 for the season compared to his, was it 66 or something like that he averaged in total overall for the season. He averaged 73 playing at Brookvale, and with them having 5 out of the first 7 games there, hopefully he has a red hot run, and after that stage he might actually be hopefully closer to Cleary, and I can just go closer to a swap there, hopefully, from his 646k. And he's only 3% owned. I thought I'd go a little bit out of the box with that, and use the extra little bit of cash on probably particularly the centre wing coming up soon. And my other halfback is Sandon Smith. I think he's pretty much been my second halfback basically the whole time since even the first team picker back in December. So at the moment he's 54% owned, and he's like 237k. He's very popular. Probably most people, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot more people have him probably as one of their hookers, and they're like running him with Amar Mazelis or potentially like even Blake Moser at the Broncos is potentially there. But yeah, I've got him as my second halfback. Alrighty, centre wings. My first one I've got is Ruben Garrick at 680k. He's currently 27% owned. The third person that I've got from Manly, going by that opening draw. They've got those 5 games at Brookvale Oval out of the 7 games, and even the couple of away games they got are actually pretty decent. Like the Cowboys up in Townsville, it's usually pretty good for Supercoach scoring when teams play up there. And I think he's got Gold Coast in one of those games as well, I'm pretty sure. Or I might be thinking of another person. But yeah, the only tough game for Manly really in that stretch, like I said earlier, was against Melbourne, and even then they score pretty well. Okay, after Garrick, I've got one of my boys, Jermaine Osako at 8% owned. He's 616k, and averaged 63 in 2024 after averaging 76.7 in 2023. Played the back end of last year a bit busted, after probably around 16 or 17 or something like that. He played the rest of the season he was pretty busted, had like a busted elbow and wrist for that back end of the year, and his base dropped heaps. Like, even though he was still, like, he'd score a try and get 60 in some games, or he'd have a bunch of goals and still only get like 50, 60. Where if he wasn't taking all the runs out of his own half or out of his own end of the field on like kick returns and that, he kept on just passing the ball off and not taking the runs. So that contributed pretty heavily to his average drop. His average dropped from like 70 down to 63 over the last probably 9-10 weeks. But yeah, he's looking fit as at the moment from what I've been seeing. Stuff from the Dolphins online, on like Facebook and Instagram, stuff like that. Yeah, he's got the best rig of all the boys at the Dolphins, in my opinion. Yeah, so with the way the Dolphins have been in the preseason, I'm pretty confident that he'll get back around the 70+ point mark per game. So yeah, at 8% own, he's fairly appealing to me. He'll bounce back and have a good year this year. And then my next centre wing, I got Greg Marzhew. He's only 13% owned as well. He's at 513k. Really don't see him going any worse than last year. The previous year he averaged like 77 and then dropped to 52, something like that. It was something ridiculous. It was like 25. His average dropped 25 points per game year on year. So I don't think he could go any worse. Realistically, he probably, if anything, he'll hold his starting value this year, or he'll just go up. And also, stuff that factored into last year was probably the fact that they went right a bit more often, which like during the year, especially late in the year, it helped with like Fletcher Sharp, when he was like scoring all those tries and that. And Bradman Best was also out injured quite a bit, especially back in the second half of the year. And then they had like Dylan Lucas playing centre on all those weeks when Bradman Best was out injured, and he was just like hogging the ball and never passed it. So with Bradman Best also being like available and playing, with any luck, Ponga spends more time going left and then putting Marzhew in for tries, hopefully. But yeah, I don't see him going any worse, really. My next one's a little bit out of the box. My fourth centre wing is Isaac Tungo, and he's only 3% owned, and he's a lot cheaper to start this year than what he has been previous seasons. Like he's only 501k because he averaged 51, which was down from his previous, was it 68 the previous year. And he's actually, and looking into his numbers over the last couple of years, when Cleary's been in the side, he's actually averaged 68 when Cleary's been in the team. So that straight away is 17 points. 17 points of value potentially for Isaac Tungo with Cleary. Like if Cleary plays almost every game throughout the year, then there's every chance that with Tungo playing outside Cleary on the right side, that he can go back up to around at least the 65 average for the year. So in my centre wings, like Marzhew, Osako, Tungo, even my starting centre wings, all combined with Ruben Garrick as well. If they all go pretty well, then I'm gonna be cheering in that case if they all go pretty well. With like at least 3 of them pretty much being pods, and basically in previous seasons they've been guns. Like in 2023, Osako and Marzhew were actually the top 2 centre wings for that year, and Garrick was even also in the top 5. Like for total points and also for averages on in that year, they were like 3 of the top 5, and Marzhew and Osako were the top 2. And then and obviously Tango with them as well. And then on the bench at the moment, I've got Isaiah Tass at 327k. He'll probably most likely, from reports, is going to be on the right wing for the Rabbitohs, with Ty Munro actually being on the left side. But then they'll probably switch Munro back to the right eventually when Alex Johnson comes back. Tass at the moment is only 4% owned as well, so very low ownership there. And then my other couple of centre wings, for the time being, I've got Jesse McLean at the Panthers, hoping that he hopefully wins the other wing spot that left by Taruva. I'm hoping Jesse gets it ahead of Casey, even though Casey actually played games for the Kiwis in the Pacific Cup, Pacific Championships. But yeah, who knows which one of them is going to get that spot. And Robert Toya, probably end up running with him to start the year anyway, even if he probably doesn't get picked for the Roosters, depending on whether or not they go with like Billy Smith and Nawanga Nitawaze as the centres, or whether they go with Billy Smith and Rob Toya to start the season. I'll probably still have Toya in my team anyway, even if he doesn't start at the beginning of the year. He's that much of a weapon that basically once he does get a shot in the side, he'll probably stay there once he does get a shot. Fullbacks, Tommy Turbo, pretty much, in my opinion, most people should have him, really. And then same thing with like Garrick, DCE, and Olakawatu. Basically, that Manly draw. He should score pretty well in the opening part of the year, and then Manly also actually have a pretty good run home after Origin as well. So I'd say at least three, like Olakawatu, Garrick, and Turbo, are guys that you could probably hold for the whole season, basically regardless. DC is the only one really that I think I'd probably have to trade out to probably Cleary at some stage. So Turbo at the moment is 31% owned, which I suppose I think probably a bit unders really. Would have thought he probably would have been a bit higher, to be honest. But yeah, he's only 31% owned. My other he's in the fullback position at the moment, but I've got Isaiah Yongi. He's 51% owned. It'll be interesting, basically, whether or not, like, how the difference it ends up being between the people who do have him in their teams and the people that don't. Whether people go for potentially another gun fullback, or like, I suppose I haven't gotten onto the flex position yet, but like if people have two guns at fullback and then they have another gun in the flex position, it'd be interesting to see the difference between the people that do that and the people who have a Iongi in their team and then they have another two fullbacks. But yeah, we'll see how that goes once the season starts. In my flex position at the moment, I've actually got Kalen Bonga. So basically I've picked him at the moment ahead of... I was thinking about having Latrell Mitchell in the team, but then I needed to use that extra cash for other players that I've got at the moment. And I was thinking, I think my first team I had Scott Drinkwater, but then looking into Cowboys draw, they got they got a pretty tough run anyway, and then they've got the bye in round 7, and then they've got the first major bye in round 12, but then after that, the rest of the year is pretty good. And then even for people that play head to head, obviously Cowboys actually have the round 27 bye. So in head to head leagues, people can have when it comes to Cowboys players, after the first bye, they've got their players are going to be available for every game through to the grand final week for head-to-heads. But I've just decided at the moment to go with Ponga, just because even if the Knights don't look like they're probably, I don't know, I don't have a lot of I don't, along with a lot of other people, have a lot of confidence that the Knights are going to do that well this year. But Ponga, especially their early draw, is pretty good, so he could still go off pretty well in those games. And then even in games when they don't do too well, Ponga's he goes pretty well anyway. So at the moment, that's pretty much my team at the moment. With certain ones like what I've said, say for instance, if Cody Walker's ruled out for round one, probably put in the comments below. If Cody Walker's ruled out before round one, who do you think would be better to pick out of Jerome Luai or Braden Trindle? And what else was I going to put? Oh, and if Isaiah Papali'i doesn't get the edge spot at the Panthers, do you think that Connor Watson or Zach Hosking would be the better option in that? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, the podcast moving forward is probably something I wanted to mention after this before I finish it up. So I'll be doing some positional stuff. I'll probably do hooker and front row together. Do one for 2RF. Probably do a combined one for halfback and 5/8, and then I'll do a centre wing obviously on its own, and then do one with fullbacks. So what's that? Five different episodes, I'm pretty sure that added up to. Hooker in front row, 2RF. Oh yeah, so yeah, in total there's five episodes of that coming up, and then I'm not too sure what I'm gonna do then. But then again, there's only literally trials are coming up over these next couple of weeks. I'll probably do recaps of the trials after each weekend, or at least after I've been able to watch the games, or during the week probably following when each of the trials have been on. Probably do recaps of those, in the remainder of the pre-season and so forth. And then once the actual season comes around, I'll probably do the plan for that during the actual season itself. I'll probably do a TLT, then quickly go through the teams, and basically who I think's probably a good person to have in your team out of each of them, who's probably a bit of a trap and stuff like that, a good pod, so forth like that. And then on the Wednesdays of those weeks, I probably might even do a short live stream where people can jump on and ask questions, and people can even put questions in the TLT video in the comments of the TLT video, and then I'll even probably do a short video answering them as well, and release that on the Wednesday night, and then that'll probably much be it I'll do a quick Sunday night wrap up, which I'll probably might even release the videos on Monday morning or something like that. So that's pretty much what I'm planning on doing moving forward. yeah, after this one. So um, yeah, so if you've been liking these videos, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Um, so yeah, that's about it. I'll see you in the next one.